Good morning everyone. Good morning Attorney Hani Papuro. And for today's video, we are going to discuss the general concepts of obligation. So first is, what is obligation? Based for the Article 1156 of the Civil Code of the Philippines that defines an obligation as a juridical necessity to do or not to do. So for instance, when you borrow money for someone, you have an obligation to pay them back. Similarly, when you buy a product, the seller has an obligation to deliver the product to you. So when we say a juridical necessity, is that simplified put, it means that if the obligation was not fulfilled, when it becomes due and demandable, the aggrieved party may file proper action in court. So you are facing illegal sanction or juridical tie. Elements of an obligation. Number 1, active subject called the obliged or creditor, the possessor of a right, he in whose favor the obligation is constituted. Number 2, passive subject called the obligor or debtor, he who has the duty of giving, doing, or not doing. Which is, a creditor is a person or entity that is owed by the creditor or loan. Number 3, object or prestation, the subject matter of the obligation. Number 4, efficient cause, vinculum or juridical tie, the reason why the obligation exists. There are some sources of obligation which is under Article 1157. Number 1 is obligation. Number 2 is contracts. Number 3 is quasi-contracts. Number 4 is delicts. And number 5, quasi-delicts. First is law. Obligation ex lege. Example, obligation to pay taxes or the father's obligation to support his family. So obligation to pay taxes means if you have a business, you are obliged to pay your taxes. It depends for your income in your business. Second example, income tax payment. Citizens are obligated to pay income tax or their earnings as mandated by tax laws.
The other source of obligation is called contract or obligation ex contractu. These are legal agreements between parties that create binding obligations. These obligations arise when two or more parties agree to do or refrain from doing something like providing service or transferring property. A contract is formed when there is a meeting of minds, meaning all parties understand and agree the terms stated in the contract. Essentially, one party agrees to perform an act or provide goods or services, and the other agrees to compensate in return. For contracts to be valid, there are three essential things. First is consent, second is object, and the last one is the cause. So first, consent rather. Consent is both parties involved in the contract must voluntarily agree to its term. This means that the agreement should be made without any form of pressure, deception, or manipulation. If one party is forced or deceived into entering contract, it is not considered valid because consent is not genuine. So, consent must be given freely and with full understanding of what is being agreed upon. Okay? So, the other one is object. The subject matter of the contract must be clear, specific, and well-defined. This refers to what is being exchanged, whether it's goods or services or an action. For instance, in a sale contract, the specific product to be delivered must be identified. If the subject matter is vague or not clearly stated, the contract cannot be enforced as it would be unclear what is being agreed upon to or exchanged between the parties. The last one is the cause. The purpose of the contract must be lawful. The cause refers to the reason why the contract is being made. If the purpose of the contract is illegal or involves unlawful activities such as stolen property or engaging in fraud, the contract is automatically considered void and unenforceable. So together, these three elements ensure that the contract is not only valid but also enforceable in a court of law. If any of these elements is missing or flawed contract, object, and the cause, the contract will be considered invalid. Example of contract. In sales contract. In a sales contract, one party, the seller, agrees to deliver the products and the other party agrees to pay the specific price in exchange for the product. So the seller obligation is to provide the goods in agreed upon condition, and the buyer obligation is to pay the price. So another example is employment contracts. In employment contracts, one party, the employer, agrees to pay an employee in exchange for labor or services provided by the employee. Both parties are bound by the term of contract, including job responsibilities, compensation, and working conditions. Enforcement and remedies for breach contracts. When party fails to meet their contract obligation, the party can seek various remedies. Some common remedies include specific performance. The court orders the breaching parties to fulfill the terms of the contract as agreed upon. This is typically used when damage would be an adequate remedy, or in the sale of unique or irreplaceable items. Damages. This involves the payment of monetary compensation to the injured party. The amount of damages is typically calculated to compensate the injured party for the loss suffered due to the breach. Rescission. This is cancellation of contracts which releases both parties from their obligations. Instead, they are imposed by law to ensure fairness and prevent one party from being unjustly enriched and the expenses of another. The idea is restore balance when one party benefits unfairly from another's actions even though no formal agreement was made. So there are characteristics of quasi-contracts. No agreements between the parties. So unlike contracts, there is no explicit agreements between the parties involved. The obligation arises from conduct of one party that benefits the other. So unlike the contract that there is an agreement, in quasi-contract there is no such. Unilateral and voluntary act. The obligation is typically imposed due to voluntary act that benefits another even though that benefits was not requested. Prevention of unjust enrichment. The core principle of quasi-contract is to prevent unjust enrichment. If one party receives a benefit without paying or compensating for it, they must be required to return the benefit or compensate the other party to restore fairness. There are also two types of quasi-contract: négociatorium gestion or management of affairs without authorization. This occurs when one person manages or takes action concerning another person's affair without their permission, but with the intention of benefiting that person. So the keywords there is without their permission, no? But with the intention of benefiting the person. Example. A neighbor sees that their neighbor's property is at risk damage due to an unforeseen or mga natural disasters like typhoons, for example. The neighbor acts to secure the property without asking for permission. Since this action benefits the property owner, the person who took the action may be entitled for compensation for their efforts or expenses. The property owner is legally bound to reimburse the neighbor, even though there was no formal agreement between them. The other types of quasi-contract is solutio indebiti, payment of something not owned. This occurs when one party mistakenly gives something to another party, believing that they own it, but in reality no obligation exists. The law requires that the recipient return the items or money received by mistakes. Example, a person mistakenly overpay a debt because of clerical error. The creditor is legally obligated to return the overpaid amount. The payer did not intend to make this additional payment, so the law requires restitution. Enforcement of quasi-contract. The enforcement of obligation arising from quasi-contract typically involves demanding restitution or compensation. This means that the unjustly enriched party must return the benefit they received or pay a reasonable amount to compensate for it. This ensures that the party who gives the benefits or suffered a loss is fairly compensated. So another source of obligation is acts or omissions punished by law or obligation ex dialecto. This is arise from unlawful acts that violates the law and cause harm or injuries to another person. These obligations come from wrongful acts or crimes, and they are civil obligations that exist separately from any criminal liability. In other words, a person can be criminally liable for their actions, but they can also be held civilly liable, meaning they may have to compensate the victims for damages or losses. So, characteristics of obligation ex dialecto. Wrongful acts or crimes. These obligations arise from criminal actions or harmful conduct that is punishable by law. Sample include thieves, assault, vandalism, or fraud. Sample: a person vandalized someone's car, causing significant damage. The car owner can sue the vandal for the repair cost, even if the vandal faces criminal prosecution for the act of vandalism. Another characteristic is civil liability distinct from criminal liability. Even if a person is acquitted in a criminal court, found not guilty of a crime, this does not mean that they are extinguished from their civil liability. This means that the injured party can still seek compensation for the harm they suffered as a result of the crime. Sample: if a person is not convicted of assault in criminal court due to lack of evidence, they may still be held liable in a civil court for the victim's medical expenses, pain and suffering, and any other damages resulting from that assault. Enforcement of obligation ex dialecto. Civil obligation arising from dialect, or also called as wrongful acts or crimes, are typically enforced through civil actions, which can be filed independently of any criminal proceedings. In some cases, the victims can recover damages directly from the perpetrator, and that these damages can include compensatory damages to cover the actual losses, such as medical bills, loss of wages, or property repair costs. Punitive damages. In certain cases, especially when the defendant's behavior was particularly egregious or reckless, the court may award additional punitive damage to punish the wrongdoer and deter future misconduct. Civil indemnity. In some jurisdictions, civil indemnity for victims of criminal acts, such as assault or homicide, may be automatically granted even if the defendant is convicted in a crime court. So in summary, quasi-contracts are legal remedy for a situation where one party benefits from the action of another without a formal agreement, while obligation ex delicto relate to civil liability arising from criminal act or wrongful conduct. Both ensure that fairness is maintained, but they do so in different ways based on underlying circumstances. And the last source of obligation is quasi-dilects, obligation ex quasi-dilecto. So, quasi-dilects refers to legal obligation that arise from acts or omission that cause damage to another party, but without a prior contractual relationship between the parties. They are primarily based on fault or negligence of the person causing the harm. The key distinction of quasi-dialects, that is, liability is established not because of deliberate or intentional wrongful act, but due to negligence or failure to exercise reasonable care leading to an injury or loss. So it is there is no intentional wrong or wrongful act in this quasi-dialect. It is just based on fault or negligence. Characteristic of quasi-dialects: no pre-existing contractual relationship. So unlike obligation ex contracto or contracts, quasi-dialects arise in situation where there is no existing agreement or contract between the parties. The liability comes from the negligence or fault of one party, which cause harm to another without the need of prior formal contract. Another one is focus on negligence or fault, not malicious intent. Unlike dialect, where the wrongful act may be intentional, quasi-dialect are based on negligence or fault. This means that a person can be held liable even if there was no malicious intent. For example, if someone accidentally caused harm by not taking reasonable care, they may still be held liable. So, the last is civil liable for damage. The injury party can pursue a civil action to claim compensation for damages caused by quasi-dialect. This is typically done through a lawsuit for damages, where the plaintiff must prove that the defendant's negligence or fault caused by injury or damage. Example of quasi-dialects. So, vehicular accidents. One of the most common example of quasi-dialects is vehicular accidents caused by careless or reckless driving. In this case, the driver may not have intention to cause or harm but failed to exercise reasonable care, leading to property damage, injury, or even death. So, example. A driver runs a stop signal and causes collision, injuring another driver or a person. Although the driver did not have any malicious intent, their failure to obey traffic rules is considered negligence, and they may be held liable for the damage caused to the victim. Another is professional negligence. Professional negligence is another example of quasi-dialect. This involves situations where a professional such as a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant fail to meet the required standard of care in their field, resulting in harm to client or patient. Example: a doctor makes a mistake during surgery due to lack of attention or improper care, causing harm to the patient. So the doctor can be held liable for the injury caused by their negligence action, even if they did not intentionally harm the patient. Another one is defective product or services. If a manufacturer or service provider is negligent in ensuring their product or services are safe, and the negligence causes harm, It can be considered a quasi-dialect. Example: a manufacturer produced a faulty appliances that catches fire due to poor construction, injuring the customer. The manufacturer can be held liable for the injury resulting from the defective product even if the defect was not intentional. So, quasi-delect are civil obligation arising from act or omission that cause harm due to negligence or fault, but without a prior contractual relationship. These obligations are grounded in principle of accountability for harm caused by one actions. Even if the harm was unintentional, the key elements for establishing a quasi-delect include the act of omission, fault or negligence, damage, and causal connection between the two. Quasi-delect are typically enforced through civil lawsuit where the injured parties seek compensation for their damages.
Good evening, everyone. I am Rosemary Piabla. So today, there are three kinds of obligation. First, pure and conditional obligation. Second, obligation with a period. And lastly, alternative and facultative obligation. So I am going to discuss about pure and conditional obligation. A pure obligation is one that is immediately demandable and enforceable. In instance, for an obligation to be classified as pure, it must be unconditional with no suspensive or resolutory condition, be free or terms, meaning it does not specify any future date or period for its effectivity, and be immediately enforceable and demandable upon the constitution or agreements by the parties involved. So there are three types of legal characteristic of pure obligation. First, immediate demandability. The creditor may demand compliance from the debtor as soon as the obligation exists. Um, so a pure obligation can be enforced immediately. Since it has no condition or time limitation, the creditor has the right to demand compliance as soon as the obligation is created. For example, suppose Anna lends to 5,000 to Ben without mentioning when he should pay it. Since there is no due date, Anna can ask for repayment anytime. Then we have absence of suspensive or resolutory condition. Um, a suspended condition is a future uncertain event that upon occurrence gives rise to an obligation. So, um, suspended condition if an obligation depends on a future event before it becomes effective, it is not pure. Then we have resolutory condition. A resolutory condition is a future uncertain event that is, if it occurs, extinguishes an obligation. So, ang resolutory condition, if an obligation is valid now but will be cancelled upon the occurrence of a future event, is it also not pure? So, for example of this is, if Carla promises to pay David 3,000 without saying, I will pay only if I win the lottery. The obligation is pure because it does not rely on any uncertain event. We have absence of term or period. A pure obligation does not have a specific time frame or deadline. The debtors must fulfill it immediately without waiting for a future date. For example, John agrees to deliver 100 boxes of goods to Mike without setting a delivery date. Since no time frame is mentioned, then Mike can demand delivery any and anytime. Then we have also example of your obligation. We have obligation to pay without condition or terms. Ang example ani is a borrower's money from B and promises to repay immediately. So we have all. I will explain this one. The the obligation to pay without condition or terms. Though, so this means the debtor must pay immediately without waiting for a future event or a set date. So for example of this, if Mark borrows a 10,000 from Jane and promises to repay her immediately, since there are no condition or deadlines, Jane can demand payment anytime. Then we have second also example of your obligation is unconditional delivery of goods or services. The obligation to deliver goods or perform a service is not dependent on any future event or time frame. It must be fulfilled as soon as agreed. So, for example, of this, that if Belle agrees to deliver 50 sacks of rice to Sam without mentioning a delivery date, then Sam can request the rice immediately since no time frame was specified. That's all. Thank you.